Hello everyone, nice to see you. We all know that China, especially southern China, is struck by historic floods. Dozens of millions of people and as many as 27 provinces out of 31 are all affected, and the worst is yet to come. However, amidst this somewhat unprecedented disaster, none of CCP's 7 Politburo Standing Committee members ever appeared in the flooded area to inspect the situation or to lead the disaster relief efforts. People have been asking, where are they? Why are they absent? Are they worrying too much about their own safety, or have they abandoned their posts and responsibilities? On July 17th, CCP's official media, or mouthpiece Xinhua, finally reported that CCP's head Xi Jinping hosted a meeting of the Standing Committee of the Political Bureau to discuss how to do flood control and disaster relief work. From the way the report was presented, which is there were no photos or videos of the meeting, only text, people know this must be a virtual meeting. This once again confirms previous reports that the top CCP leaders have escaped from Beijing and are staying at different locations since the new round of COVID-19 or CCP virus outbreak in June. Xinhua also mentioned that other issues were also discussed in the meeting at the end of the report, but other than this one sentence, no details about the discussion were disclosed. So what did the CCP leaders discuss exactly? According to Chinese commentator Professor Zhang Tianliang of Feitian College, the CCP leaders are having a doomsday panic. They are at a loss as to what to do and are having fierce internal fights. They must have discussed what they should do when their previously seemingly perfect abandoning the sinking ship plan could be destroyed overnight by the latest move of the US and other countries. So, what is this abandoning the sinking ship plan? As early as 2016, Chinese scholar Chen Yongmiao revealed in an article that the CCP had an abandoning the sinking ship plan, which means that the CCP leaders knew that their ship was sinking and they needed to abandon it before it was too late. But before they abandoned the sinking ship, they needed to make sure that they had plundered enough money inside China and moved it out to safe places overseas so that they could continue to enjoy an extravagant lifestyle for several more generations in other countries after they abandoned their ship. Chen Yongmiao said that was why the CCP leaders squeezed the Chinese people so hard, but were so generous when they threw away money outside of China, because they needed to establish good relationships in those countries so that they could have favorable living conditions after they abandon their ship and migrate to those countries. In 2017, another Chinese blogger revealed more details of this plan. He said that what triggered the plan was the Tiananmen massacre in 1989. Before tanks rode onto the streets of Beijing, the then CCP leader Deng Xiaoping had prepared 2 plans. Plan B, the backup plan, was if the crackdown on the student movement failed for whatever reason, Deng would flee Beijing immediately. Several special planes parked in the western suburb in Beijing were ready to fly to Pakistan at any time. Lots of gold and US dollars were loaded inside the aircraft. The second escort group of the North Sea Fleet of CCP's Navy also launched the highest level alert and was ready to sail at any time. Of course, with the success of the crackdown, this backup escape plan was not executed, but Deng's actions at the time caused dissatisfaction among other senior CCP leaders. In order to make peace with them, Deng proposed this, abandoning the sinking ship plan at the 1991 executive meeting of CCP's Central Advisory Committee, which was made up by the most veteran CCP members who had a lot of power and influence within the party. After that meeting, a secret preparatory group was set up to secretly carry out the plan. The three core elements of the plan were money, people, and pathways. China Development Bank, which was established in 1994, was a bank system especially set up to carry out the money part of the abandoning the sinking ship plan. Many important financial measures and the so-called reforms were all for the same purpose, such as the tax-sharing system among local and central governments, the industrialization of medical and education systems, transforming state-owned enterprises into joint stock companies, and cashing out state-owned enterprises in the stock market, and so on. For the people element of the plan, it was to make sure that the right persons were chosen for the important positions. For the pathway elements, it was important to choose the right person to carry out the so-called cutting off the tail operation. What is cutting off the tail operation? When animals such as geckos and lizards are bitten by a predator or in danger, they often break their own tails to attract the attention of the enemy and take the opportunity to escape. This can be described as a way to survive by sacrificing parts to preserve the whole. It was a survival skill or instinct to defend themselves. So the CCP also had such a plan. When it becomes necessary, the CCP will cut off its own tail, sacrifice some members to create opportunities for its core members to escape to safe places. Chinese scholar Chen Yongmiao also revealed that when the time to abandon the sinking ship arrived, CCP's core members would immediately activate a national archive self-destruction system to destroy all dangerous historic records and then evacuate their entire families to countries that they have already established relationships with. In this way, they can ensure the safety and the prosperity of at least several generations to come. So, for the past 3 decades, the CCP has been systematically carrying out this plan. In 2012, leaked CCP's internal data showed that 90% of Central Party committee members had relatives and children who had migrated to foreign countries. 85% of top officials were ready to abandon their posts and escape China. In 2017, a Chinese language magazine in Hong Kong disclosed that 1 million CCP senior members are so-called naked officials, which means they had already sent all their families and their wealth out of China. Then how much wealth have they moved out of China exactly? In 2012, Washington, D.C.-based think tank Global Financial Integrity published a report saying that Chinese economy lost $3.79 trillion in illicit financial outflows from 2000 to 2011. Raymond Baker, the director of Global Financial Integrity, said that I've studied the proceeds of crime, corruption, and tax evasion for decades, and the magnitude of illicit money flowing out of China is astonishing. There's no other developing or emerging economy that even comes close to suffering so much in illicit financial outflows. The report also said that the illegal outflows, the proceeds of crime, corruption, and tax evasion, were largely due to a trade-based money laundering technique known as trade misinvoicing, which accounted to 3.2 trillion US dollars, or 86.2% of the total outflow of illegal capital over the 11 years studied. What is trade misinvoicing? A simple example is when a Chinese company exports 1,000 US dollars worth of goods to the US, the buyer in the US only pays $800 and issues an invoice of $800 to the Chinese company, while the remaining $200 is deposited directly into some individual's bank account in the US. In this way, $200 US disappeared in the money laundering process and becomes illegal money obtained. According to Professor Zhang Tianliang, such massive outflows represent the amount of money that the CCP had moved out of China. If the outflow from 2000 to 2011 was 3.2 trillion, since China's total import and export increased at an average annual rate of 6%. So using the numbers from 2000 to 2011 to calculate how much more money was moved out of China from 2012 to 2019, the result was about 4.2 trillion. So, if we put all the numbers together, in the past 20 years, about 8.83 trillion was moved out of China via misinvoicing and other money laundering methods. If we add other funds transfer channels such as the One Belt, One Road program and direct investments, the total amounts could be as much as 10 trillion US dollars. If this number is close to the true number, we can imagine how panicked the CCP leaders can be when they realize that their 30 years in the making plan abandoning the sinking ship could go bankrupt overnight, and all the wealth they accumulated and transferred could be gone in one day. In our last program, we discussed the US possible move of banning all CCP members from entering the US. If that really happens, the CCP's elites will have problems enjoying their money in the US. If other countries follow suit, things will be even more difficult for the CCP's senior members. Before I was going to record this program, the news that the US had ordered the CCP to close its consulate in Houston to protect American intellectual property and Americans' private information, and videos of CCP's staff inside the consulate urgently burning documents were everywhere on the internet. Senator Marco Rubio tweeted on Wednesday that China's consulate in Houston is not a diplomatic facility. It is a central node of the Communist Party's vast network of spies and influence operations in the United States. Now that building must close, and the spies have 74 hours to leave or face arrest. This needed to happen. This breaking news also tells us, with the global trend of pushing back against the CCP's abandoning the sinking ship plan has already encountered huge problems. In order to preserve its power, the CCP has been brainwashing Chinese people into believing that if the CCP is gone, China will fall into chaos. Chinese people will suffer more. Maybe that is also the reason why some people in the West are also reluctant to talk about or actively advocate the idea of disintegrating or taking down the CCP. They also worry about the consequences. As a matter of fact, things will not necessarily fall into chaos if the CCP is gone. The world didn't end when the communist regime in the Soviet Union and Eastern Europe collapsed. Why should it be when the CCP is gone? Professor Zhang Tianliang also said, now that we know such a huge amount of wealth was illegally obtained and transferred by those CCP members, if we can seize that money and give it back to Chinese people after the CCP collapses, such a huge amount, which is close to 1 year's GDP of China, can greatly help to stabilize the economy of China and help China to move into a post-CCP era. Okay, that's all for today. Thank you for watching. Truth does save lives. Please subscribe to my channel and share it. Thank you. See you next time.